hard to see. You got lights in your face in the mirrors. Bright lights. We are in West Valley, Utah, aka Salt Lake City. Heading to Clearfield, Utah would be my stop. Thanks for coming in and watching, and don't forget to hit them thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you. Tired. Sure.
raised by my grandparents, my younger brother and I. And my granddaddy did pipeline construction work. In his younger years, they moved all over the state, and they eventually settled down in another part of the state from where they were born and raised, and they've been there for over 20 years. When it started getting close to time for my granddad to retire, he purchased some property in their hometown in North Mississippi, where he and my grandmother had been born and grown up, and he intended on building a home there and moving us all back closer to family, so that when he did retire, we would be back close to his brothers and sisters and all of his friends. So during this time, when my grandfather had purchased this property, there was the main road through this place where he was going to move us to was being expanded from a 2-lane highway to a 4-lane highway. So another property adjacent to the land that he had just bought with a house already on it came up for sale. They thought, this is perfect. We'll buy this place and we can live in this other house until our new house is built. So they bought it, we fixed the house up, and moved in right before school started, my 7th grade year. And just to kind of explain the property, this fixer-upper house and the new house, even though the main highway runs right in front of the house, it's still a rural area. Many, many acres of woods behind this property, and there's also a river bottom and wildlife area beyond that. So, to explain how the layout of the land, this little fixer-upper house, the woods come right over behind it, but also when the new house was built, the woods is your imagination playing tricks on you, or you're just being silly, that type of thing. So about a week later, on the day of my encounter, I was in bed, and my grandmother came, and she yelled up the stairs at me that she and my brother were going to go to town, that she had to go and deposit some money in the bank, and that they were going to go get breakfast, and she wanted to know, did I want to go with them? And I didn't. I decided to stay there, but I did get up when she yelled up at me, and so I got on up, I went downstairs, I fixed myself a cup of coffee. About the time, that I got down there in the kitchen, I could hear the garage door closing, and my grandmother was driving away to the bank. I went over and sat down in their house. They had a dining room, but they also had a breakfast room. This breakfast room was on the back side of the house, like our living room, and it was glass. It had a lot of windows. Pretty much the whole wall was glass, and you could see out to the backyard and into the woods in the same area where you could see out of those living room patio doors. So I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, getting awake, and I can see something moving in the woods. And at this point, I'm facing like towards the east. I'm seeing this movement probably a football field away at this point. It's just, something moving. And I thought to myself, well, it's deer, because we had a very well-used deer trail behind the house. We would watch the deer. That was like a daily ritual at the house, drinking our coffee on it and watching the deer move through. So I don't know why at that point the whole thing slapping the door didn't come to mind, but it didn't. It never crossed my mind. I'm just thinking, oh, it's deer. So I get up and I walk to the patio doors in the living room so I can see better. And I end up actually going outside the patio doors. And still, I'm watching this movement, like the sun was still kind of coming up. And so what I'm seeing right now is kind of like a shadow movement. As it gets closer, I realize that whatever this is not walking on 4 legs, that it's walking on 2. So at that point, it kind of scares me a little bit, because, this is private property. Nobody's supposed to be back there. I thought it was a person. By this point, it's getting her. And I begin to realize that this could not possibly be a person. And the first thing that struck me as odd is it was all the same color. Not like a person that you would see, wearing clothes, whereas their shirt would be one color and their pants would be another color. So for a split second, I'm thinking, this is a person dressed in head-to-toe camouflage. And then I realized as I look closer that it's not a person in camouflage, that this thing is covered in hair. And I realized that it's impossibly large. If I had to guess, I would say that it was easily 8 feet tall, if not taller than that. And just not only tall, but broad. I was a small, teenager at the time. I was about 5 feet tall, and I can remember thinking to myself that this thing is as wide as I am tall. And so still at this point, it's kind of facing me. So I'm getting a frontal view of it at this point. But it's not close enough for me to really see. I can't see facial features or any small details, but mostly just the size of it. Its arms were very long. They hung down nearly to its knees, not quite. And it would swing its arms as it walked. And then its torso was long. Like the top part of it was longer than the bottom part. So at this point, absolutely frozen in fear because I've realized, I distinctly remember thinking to myself, I am standing here in my backyard looking at Bigfoot. This is, I can remember thinking this is really happening right now. And I just kind of stood there, I was shaking, my heart was pounding, trying to understand what was going on. And finally, I had sort of a moment of clarity, I guess, and I realized I was probably in danger. So the house, there's a little alcove sort of to the left side of the patio doors, and I kind of ducked back in that little alcove and crouched down, trying to hide. Because this thing is still, this entire time, which it feels like an eternity, but I'm sure, this has happened in a very short amount of time. But this entire time, this thing has never slowed down, it's never stopped, it's walking very quickly, very purposefully in my direction. And so I duck down and hide. It never slows, it never stops, it keeps walking. At this point, it's walking parallel to the back of the house. Probably about 35 yards away, still up in the edge of the woods, but it's close enough at this point that I can see it very well. It's walking parallel to me, so I'm getting a profile view of it now. And the thing I remember most as I watched it walk by was how it walked. It walked, it was so unlike the way that a human walks. Like, that's the one thing that has stood out in my mind for all these years. And it's a hard thing to describe, but it would pick its feet up much higher than a person would when they would walk, yet its head didn't bob up and down or move as it went by. It was very smooth and graceful and fluid, even though it was walking through the woods. The ground was uneven, there's rocks, there's roots, and it was just very, very graceful and smooth. Its hair was a dark brown color. It wasn't really long, but down towards the bottom of its arms and the bottoms of its legs, it was longer in those areas. And as it got really close to me, there's sort of a thinned out place there in the woods, and the sun was shining down in between the trees. And as it walked by there, the light shined on its hair, and I could see red, like a red tint to its hair when the sun would shine on it. So it walks by, I'm crouched down hiding. It never stopped what it was doing. It never looked at me. I don't know if it even knew that I was there. I don't know how it couldn't have known, because I had been standing right out in the open, and I still wasn't very hidden. I was just up against the house, and it had been facing me to begin with, walking towards me. So I don't know that it didn't know I was there. Maybe it didn't care. It was looking out in front of it, sort of down at the ground, and it was making a noise, like I call it a snorting noise, like it was sniffing. So later, after I was grown and I would think about it a lot, I wondered if it wasn't maybe tracking, following the deer that would come through there. At any rate, it was not paying any attention to me. I listened to it walk on by. I stayed crouched down there until I didn't hear anything move anymore. And when I didn't, I jumped up and ran into the house and called a neighbor because I was scared to death. And of course, I couldn't tell the neighbor what I had just seen. So I just told the neighbor and my grandparents that I saw a person in the woods, that it startled me. And I never told the truth until much later. Until after my brother had a similar experience, which I'll explain in a minute. The experience that my brother had was a good, I'm going to say 2 to 3 years later. I was driving, so I was probably 16, 17. My brother was probably 12. So in the time in between my having seen this creature and the experience my brother had, there was a lot of very strange and unusual things that happened around our house. My grandfather built a shop in the woods, and it was in that same area that I talked about earlier. It kind of joined the properties together. It was real dense woods, very dark and creepy. And, that was the same area that my mom and I heard that growl come from. So my grandfather built a shop in those woods. You would actually have to walk a path through the woods or drive through the backyard and into a little drive into the woods to go to the shop. And during this time in between my encounter and what happened with my brother, there was just a lot of weird stuff. There was motion sensor lights on the shop. They were constantly coming on all hours of the night. We were hearing noises out there. The things at the shop would be moved around and tinkered with. My grandfather thought that, we had people coming and modding his things, but nobody ever spoke. The stuff would just be moved around. For instance, he had several tree stands that he would just have leaning up against the tree or the building or whatever. He would leave it in one place and come back out and it would be moved. Things that were outside of the shop moved around. And then another thing that would happen was they always had a huge garden. And living out in a rural area, deer were always getting into our garden. And so my grandfather had this thing he would do where he would put stakes up around the garden and string a piece of yarn. And then on the yarn, he would poke holes in metal posts and string them on the strings. And this the sound of...
I have to stop for a second. I don't want to fall asleep and crash. I'm trying to look up. Just trying to wake up.
2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. My room was on the second floor of the house, but it was over on the side of the house, closest to the woods.
Give me
where
a
the shop
sec.
was. And I heard a deer making it was making a bleeding noise, like something was after it, like it was scared or hurt. And it was loud enough and went on long enough that it woke me up from a sound sleep, which I just really thought was odd. And so all of this stuff, there were other things. We would hear strange noises in the woods all the time. Even my grandparents
almost a cave now.
thinking for a minute that there was anything strange out there. My grandfather would come in and say, I heard some kind of animal. I can't figure out what it was. I mean, that was something that happened a lot. Also during this time, My mother lived with
Nobody
us
talks to
again,
me on the
and
chat,
she
so I can
had
stay
a little
awake and talk.
RV, and she parked her RV in front of this shop in the woods.
So I gotta stop for a
And
second.
she would tell my grandparents all the time that she could hear something or someone on 2 feet walking around her RV late at night and messing with the RV, pushing on it, and making noises out there. And my grandparents would always tell her, you know, it's just deer, it's, you know, it's just this, it's just that. And she would be very adamant about the fact that no, it was not deer, that it didn't have 4 feet, that it had 2. So my brother's encounter, like I said, it happened when I was about 17. He was probably about 12. He had just gotten a brand new 4-wheeler. I think actually he had brought it home that day. And so, of course, he had been riding it all evening. He came in and went out to the shop to wash it off before going in at night. It was right at dusk. It was getting dark. He was standing at the back of the shop with his back to the woods, hosing the 4-wheeler down, and he heard a noise that sounded like a limb snap. He turns around to see what the noise is, and standing behind him, he said about 15 feet away is a creature standing on 2 legs, and he described it as having the face or the head of a dog. When he turned around and looked at it, he said that it showed him his teeth and growled at him or snarled at him, and he threw the water hose down and just ran to the house. I had been gone when this actually happened. I came in. My brother was very upset and kind of storming off when I came in, and my grandparents were kind of laughing about it. They were, you know, saying, you know, I was asking what was going on, and they were saying, oh, your brother saw Booger Man in the woods. And of course that struck a chord with me, because I had seen this creature, you know, several years before and had never told anyone. So when they told me that he had seen some kind of creature in the woods, I thought, well, now he's seen it too. So I went and talked to him about it. It was very frustrating for them because it had absolutely traumatized him, and he was trying to talk to him about it, and they just wasn't having it. And I asked him to tell me the story or whatever. And so at that point, once he had seen what he saw, I told him and my grandparents, you know, that I had also seen something in the woods out there. And I questioned him a lot about it, because what I saw did not, I mean, I kind of wanted to think that it was the same creature, because we had pretty much seen it in the same place, in that same creepy patch of woods over to the east side of the house, where whatever it was seemed to hang out. And you know, there was a few years in between there, but it wasn't too terribly far apart, the sightings weren't. So I kind of thought, you know, well, maybe just in his fear. So I kind of questioned about what he see, and he was absolutely adamant that the animal that he saw had the head of a dog and big, sharp fangs. Whereas what I saw did not. It had a flat face. I mean, it didn't have a snout or, you know, a muzzle or anything like that. I didn't see any ears. And its body, arms, and legs were very reminiscent of a person. They didn't look, it didn't have hocks like a dog would or anything like that. It was much more human-like than what he described. So I don't know if we saw 2 completely different things, But that is my story, and I guess that's all I've got.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for
I
listening. Have a great
am
night.
at that rest stop by Kingsville. Close. Just give me like 10 minutes to wake up. I had to take a little break. Alright. Let's make it the rest of the way. I'll have to stop by Kaysville. I had to take a 10-minute break to come get sleepy. Alright. I don't know.
deal with that, but, you know, nothing terribly disturbing. But the ones that have been around me have always been kind. I've not had that issue. If possibly any were to come in that were not what they would consider to be pure of heart, they've been very helpful. I had one instance in Michigan where we had one that came in and they literally pelted it with rocks until it left. And after that, everything was calm again. Where I'm at right now, we have 3 different plants of actual people that come into this area and at my house. And then we have another, you know, her name, her child. I think the child now is probably maybe 5 or 6. And he's a big boy now. And he continually is running around with my yard. And I have a pan that is bolted to my banister that I put food in for feral cats because where I'm at, the feral cat problem is just terrifying. And they come up there and they get food. And he's figured this out. So it's not uncommon to go, my front door, I have my big door and I have glass panels on either side of the door and above it. It's not uncommon to get up in the middle of the night and look out that window and see him on the porch. As soon as she realizes you're watching, of course it takes off, but that's not uncommon. The other night they were playing with the cars. You know, we would be in the house and we'd look outside, all of a sudden the lights were on inside the car. We'd go out, we'd turn them off, we'd go in the house, we'd look out, the lights were on the inside of the car, and handprints everywhere. And my daughter especially, she's got this little tiny blue Honda and it's blue. They love that car. Every time that car is here, it's pelted with handprints, oily handprints. They did that with my Jeep. We went to dinner with a friend of mine, and I just washed it, and it was home for just a matter of an hour. And we went to go get in the car, and I'm like, I didn't even realize they'd been out in the yard. My clean texture on the hands.
Every journey starts with a dream, and all dreams come with a price. Saving isn't a climb, but with goals, determination, and the financial partner, there's no dream you can't reach. No peak is too high. So what are you saving for? Share your dream with us for a chance to win $1,000. Start saving with Bank of Utah today.
Visit bankofutah.com to enter. No purchase necessary. Eligible restrictions apply. See website for official rules and details. Member FDIC.
Our $3,500 rebate is really cool. Colby has it with National. Let's say you're upside down about $3,500. But when you trade your vehicle into National, that problem's fixed. If you don't have a trade, we will discount our vehicle $3,500 off its already low price. Every car dealership wants money down. At National, when you use our rebate, we give you $3,500 of down payment assistance. National. Come see us at Sandy and American Fork. NationalBuickGMC.com.
Every journey starts with a dream, and all dreams come with a price. Saving isn't a climb, but with goals, determination, and the right financial partner, there's no dream you can't reach.
Cool.
No peak is too high. So what are you saving for? Share your dream with us for a chance to win $1,000. Start saving with Bank of Utah today.
Visit bankofutah.com to enter. No purchase necessary. Eligible restrictions apply. See website for official rules and details. Member FDIC.
And so when they leave a handprint, it stays for long periods of time. I mean, it's hard to get that oil off the vehicle. And a friend of mine, she lives like 10, 15 minutes from me, and she did not realize that she had them that were coming up in her backyard. Up until she met me, she really didn't know that much about them. And I was over at her house one day, and I had found a bunch of footprints, and I said, no, you've got them here as well. And she has German Shepherds, and she's got some white ones, and they absolutely adore her white German Shepherd. White to them is a sign of purity, and they really hold anything white in very high regards. And she has this room attached to her house that the dogs are in, and she's forever finding giant handprints all over the door to that from the outside going in, where they'll literally put their hands on it and lean up against the door and the windows to watch them. And she has a porch off of there, and she had all kinds of stuff on that porch. everything from a generator to dog crates to shelves to wood, whatever. And she got up one day and all of that was off the porch and out in the
Here he
yard.
comes with the
She has
cigarette.
no idea what they were looking for, but they had pulled everything off that porch and dumped it in the yard. And she had
Take
about
your
4 years
cigarette
ago, she had
somewhere else.
a pair of, I guess you would call them rosebush clippers, the big long ones. And they just disappeared. She had not been able to ever find them again. And then like a month and a half ago, she went out her door and they sat on her porch. They had brought them back. I don't know what they did with them while they had them, but they were back and there was all kinds of footprints on the ground where they had walked when they brought them. But she had 2 foster dogs because she does the animal rescue with my husband and I. And 2 of them turned on her one day out in her yard. And she's an older woman. She's 66 years old. She's just a beautiful, beautiful person. And these 2 dogs attacked her and tried to pull her on the ground. They would have killed her. They almost did. And the female had hold of her leg and was vigorously shaking her leg, and the male was trying to grab her
I'm gonna
underneath
go.
and
I'm
pull
gonna
her
get
out on the
lectured
ground.
by somebody.
And the Bigfoots were in the woods that butts up to her property.